again, this is Christy Fricks and this is Marona Graham-Bailey, come to be known as the Value Framing Group. When we started hashing out the idea for our research, we were looking at people's values and opinions about controversial issues. We talked about abortion, we talked about gay marriage, and all those things that kind of fall into the categories of controversial issues and belief systems and all that. And we wanted to narrow down a specific topic, and so we wanted to look at infidelity because it is something that we consider to be usually wrong. And so we looked at how people's opinions and their values and belief systems are changing over time, and we wondered whether or not the media, or to what degree the media affected or influenced our belief systems and our value formation. And so a lot of our research, backed up that kind of common sense that it is a constant flux. But when we began to look at the specific issue of infidelity, we were able to kind of narrow it down and really magnify one element. And let's see, for our research, we ended up doing a pre-test, post-test experiment, which really looked at the cause and effect relationship between framing in the news and the controversial issue, or not necessarily controversial, but the issue of infidelity, and how news frames affect our opinions about certain issues. And so Morona's actually going to go into detail about our methodology and our results, and then kind of bounce back and forth from there.
So we decided to use value framing as our guiding theory for our paper, specifically because with political issues, people tend to use their core values to decide where they stand on issues. And also, framing incorporates a wider range of factors than second-level agenda setting or priming, and we took the position that framing was a separate theory than second-level agenda setting or priming. And so we decided to look at value framing.
Okay, so like Troy said, we did a pre-test, post-test experimental design. Here's what our sample looked like. It was like everybody else's. It was predominantly white, predominantly female. We did ours in a single class, so that was the class demographics. On average, it was 20 years old, so it was an undergraduate class. Most of them grew up in a 2-adult household. It was around 90%. Only about 14% of them considered themselves to be in a committed relationship. Few of them were married, and few of them had kids. It was about 3 people out of a sample of 240. So we had 2 articles, one that was positive frame and one was negative frame. Now, if you guys remember, we came in here and we sort of did a little pilot test on you guys. We had 4 when we came in. We went ahead and knocked that down to 2 because of the feedback you gave us, to positive and negative. The other 2 that we knocked out were neutral and mixed. Those didn't work. We did do a manipulation check. We asked people whether or not their article was forgivable, written as forgivable, or written as unforgivable. People who said it was forgivable were supposed to be the positive. People who said it was unforgivable were supposed to be the negative, and a chi-square did show that it was statistically significant. So we had 3 research questions. The first one was, after seeing your article, would you change your opinion on politicians? We did a t-test, and we found that when comparing the pre and the post-test scores of the semantic differential, in the negative article, it was significant. In the positive article, it wasn't significant. So there, in the negative cell, there was a decrease from pre-test to post-test on the semantic differential scale. Our second research question was, will you change your opinions on infidelity after seeing a positive or negatively framed article? We found that both for the positive articles and the negative articles, when looking at, we did issue-specific questions on infidelity, that you will, from pre-test to post-test, you'll decrease your opinion on infidelity. Our last research question looked at whether or not your values relate to whether or not you'll support a cheating politician. And we found that in the positive article, people who saw the positive article, there was a correlation. It was moderate positive, which meant that the more liberal you were, the less likely you were to support a cheating candidate. In the negative article, it was a weak correlation. So those are our results.
So the interesting thing is that, as were in a suspension, the higher people scored on the liberalism index, then the more likely they were to support Congressman Smith, showing that core values are actually tied to how framing affects people. Also, our research supported the fact that when people are confronted with positive or negatively framed articles, they do have a change in belief. And probably the most interesting results that we had was the fact that with a negative issue such as infidelity, regardless of framing, people view it as negative in general, showing that frames are tied to the greater society as a whole.
But I just wanted to add to that, the most significant thing I think was that those who had the negative article felt that infidelity was even more negative than those who received the positive article. But some of the limitations to our study, when we did our pilot test with you guys, a lot of you said that you did not associate the fictitious character of Congressman Smith with the actual politician who was no doubt had an extramarital affair, John Edwards. And we feel, after we did our experiment, we kind of just had a casual debriefing conversation with our class of students, and they interjected that the article was indeed about John Edwards, and they didn't even mention the name Congressman Smith. So that led us to believe that it's possible that some of them actually filled out their survey with him in mind instead of this fictitious character. So they may have projected their own feelings about the actual politician in their survey. So that may have been a limitation. Another one of our limitations was simply that, as I don't know if Marona mentioned it specifically, but some of our alphas did not meet the threshold, but it was very close to the study that we modeled it after. Another limitation or possible limitation was the fact that our demographic was, as we mentioned, a very young group of students, about 20, and almost none of them were in committed relationships. So it's possible that if they had been a more diverse group, as far as some of them being married or some of them having children, that could have affected their ideas about infidelity and the strength of their value concerning it. And then, obviously, as with any experiment, it's done as a one-time event, and it's really difficult to simulate a real situation, and framing effects happen over time. So the fact that they were looking at an article that looked to be printed off of a credible news source online, I mean, they're generally aware that they were in an experiment, so that always, that's always a consideration. But, oh, thanks.